Okay, everyone, let's get started. Welcome to the ETI-NET XYPRO NonStop Digital Resilience webinar, highlighting our January Alliance announcement. Let's go over some logistics first. First, it's important to understand that this session is being recorded, and as such, everyone's audio has been muted and video disabled. Second, questions can be submitted in real time through the chat button. We will watch the questions as they come in, and we'll look for opportunities to answer through the presentation. Additionally, we're going to hold a Q&A session at the end. As such, if you've got a question, it's best to get it in as fast as possible, and we'll go through that and either answer it through the presentation, or we'll go ahead and do it at the very end. Okay, now let's get started. I'm Mike Mitch, Director of Business Development for ETI-NET. I'm coming to ETI-NET with experience in what IDC refers to as AL4 class fault-tolerant computing systems, high-performance disk-based backup systems, and cloud services. I'll be serving as the MC and presenter covering the enhancements which ETI-NET has embarked on to protect nonstop backup data with the integration of software-defined storage into the Backbox virtual tape controller. Accompanying me is our esteemed guest, Steve Chuchian. Steve, I met at TBC 23 based on a shared vision of how to realize digital resiliency for HPE NonStop systems by partnering to protect top cybersecurity vectors, such as targeting backup data and systems. Steve is the Chief Product Officer and CISO for XYPRO and brings us a distinguished history of bringing security products and services to the non-stock market, and will be presenting the benefits of SecurityOne. Also, we have George Alonso. George is XYPRO's chief architect, working with non-stop systems since their early 80s. George and I have worked together on the testing and walkthrough that will be presented later in the presentation. I'm confident that you'll appreciate the detailed operational knowledge George presents in his walkthrough of XYPRO's SecurityOne. Now, let's review the webinar session objectives and agenda. Now that we're through the introduction, let's recap the objectives. For attendees, we've structured this webinar to provide an update on the latest cybersecurity threats and how ETI-NET and XYPRO have worked together to fortify the backup data infrastructure by utilizing SecurityOne security assessment controls. For the next 40 minutes, we'll cover the security value and agility that Backbox and QoreStor deliver to the nonstop estate, and how together with SecurityOne, the backup systems and data are protected against top security threats. George will walk us through the actual security scans and the results nonstop clients should expect in their environment from SecurityOne. As I mentioned previously, if you have questions, please go ahead and submit the questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. From here, I'm going to ask Steve to pick up on the state of the latest cybersecurity vectors and the statistics. Steve?
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, everyone. So I'm going to scare you guys with some statistics. This is 2024, and some of this is still happening, and these numbers are only increasing. But it's not all as it seems, because there's a lot we can do about this, but this is reality. The average cost of a cyber attack currently is sitting at $5 million US. Now, that's just the amount it takes to identify, control, and contain a cyber attack. That doesn't take into account any damage to the business, anything that happens afterwards, reputational damage, stock prices, etc. We look back last year to the MGM breach. That breach, that attack, cost them over $110 million just in monetary financial damage. That's not taking into account all the reputational damage and everything else, how their customers were affected by that. Now, ransomware accounts for 64% of all of the cyber attacks that we're seeing currently, with 91 of them focused on exfiltrating data. It's no longer the case, and we'll talk about it in a couple of slides. It's no longer the case where they're getting in there, they're holding files for ransom, asking for Bitcoin, and then leaving. No, they're double and triple dipping into this attack, which is these attacks are taking much, much, much longer for them to materialize and get a result from, because they know they can monetize this attack multiple times. Insiders have always been an issue, and the threat from an insider, somebody misusing their access, has always been an issue. But we're seeing more and more of this type of activity becoming reality in 2023, and we're likely to see this increase in 2024. Now, two of these statistics here at the bottom row really blow my mind. Is the average downtime after a cyber attack. So this can be ransomware, this can be something else. 21 days. Just imagine if your business was offline for 21 days, what that would do to you. Resilience is a key. We're going to talk about that in a few slides. But the other thing that contributes to all of these statistics is monitoring. We're not monitoring our environments. 40% of IT assets are unmonitored. If you look around your data center, look around your office, apply that statistic to what you're seeing right now. 4 out of every 10 devices in your environment, on average, have absolutely no monitoring to them. That means nobody knows what's happening to them. Nobody knows if they're being targeted, if somebody's in there doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And this shouldn't be the case because it's 2024. All of the tools, the technology, and the strategy exists to be able to mitigate this. Now, for years, we've been trained to say, back up your data. Backing up your data is protection against ransomware. That way, if your files are ever ransomed, you can always go to a backup copy, restore your backup, and you're back up in business. You don't have to worry about paying the ransom. That's still a very valid strategy, but we can't rely on that as the sole protection against a ransomware attack. The damage is already done. And the challenge now is these ransomware attacks are dwelling inside of your environments for months, if not years. That means that malicious payload, that ransomware or whatever other malware they've put in your systems is in your backups already. They know that. They're targeting your backups on purpose. They know that if they can get that malicious code into your backups are useless because you can recover all you want. It's just going to reintroduce that virus over and over again. The challenge here is also they're not attacking production level systems. So they're not targeting your upper environments. They're going after development systems. They're going after your DR environment. They're going after your backup systems. Why? Because they want to make sure that they increase as much of the probability that they can that you're going to pay that ransom. So if they target your backups, your DR systems, your dev environments, other systems that you might use to recover your business and disable those, they know you're not going to have any choice but to pay that ransom. Now, I talked about double and triple dipping. What does that mean? That ransomware attack is not being launched on day one. The very first thing that they're going to do is obviously target your backups, make sure they disable your ability to be able to restore and recover without paying the ransom. But they're going to exfiltrate your data. So this means taking your employee data, your customer data, your corporate data, whatever that they can find, and be able to monetize that on the dark web. Not only monetize that on the dark web, but now we're seeing harassment campaigns based on that data, meaning they're exfiltrating a company's customer records or employee records, and they're targeting executives of that company at home in their personal lives to force them, to influence them to talk to the business to pay the ransom. It's a disgusting world out there, but this is the reality that's happening. So what do we do about it? We've known for ages that prevention is key. We hear this all the time. Or backups, as long as you have backups, you don't have to worry about ransomware. Fortunately, that's not the case anymore. Yes, all of those are still relevant and absolutely necessary, but we can't rely on a single strategy anymore because prevention is no longer the key. You can prevent all you want. The good guys have to be right 100% of the time. The bad guys only need to be right once. That's why prevention is key, but you've got to make sure that you've got the safeguards in place and the strategies in place that if and when they're able to infiltrate your systems and your environment, that you can quickly recover. That's the key, is being able to become resilient and recover your business as quickly as possible. So where do you start on your digital resiliency journey? This is from the NIST cybersecurity framework. And what we've done along with HPE and ETI-NET is map the offerings that HPE provides here to help you become digitally resilient. Digital resilience starts with identification. If anybody comes to you and says, I've got a digital resiliency strategy, or I've got a zero trust solution for you, walk the other way. It's without identifying your assets, you don't know what you're protecting, you don't know what strategy you're putting into place, and the strategy you might end up putting into place might be the wrong one for your assets, your customers, and your business. So identification is key. And what XYPRO and HPE provide here is an assessment service. We've been doing this worldwide. We go in, we look at your systems, your environment, your data, everything, top to bottom, left to right. We'll pull a full inventory of what we're up against. This helps us create a roadmap for phase 2, which is laying down the protection. It's hardening your system, putting all of the controls and safeguards in place to minimize the attack surface. That's the key, is minimize the probability of ransomware or any other malware even being introduced into your environment. Once that attack surface is minimized as much as possible, now we can put monitoring in place, meaning, okay, we've locked the doors, we've closed the windows, we know nobody can get in to the best of our abilities, but that doesn't mean they're not going to try. So we need to have real-time monitoring in place with a zero trust architecture. So this is where we put up the security cameras, real-time monitoring, detect in real time if somebody's trying to infiltrate your environment. And if we can do that in real time or near real time, that gives us a fighting chance to be able to quickly respond and deploy our countermeasures to prevent that attack from proliferating throughout your entire environment. So we can detect when something is introduced into the environment. And in terms of ransomware, there's really only 2 ways ransomware is going to be introduced into a NonStop environment. It's going to be somebody introducing an object or a file that wasn't previously on the system, or somebody changing something that already exists on the system. This can be intentional or this can be unintentional. In the cases of a malicious insider, they could be changing something on the system to modify, and when some commands are run, execute encryption on the NonStop. Don't get me wrong, ransomware is absolutely possible on NonStop systems. You can run OpenSSL against a volume or directory, take the keys you use to encrypt those files, put them into trash, and hold those files for ransom. So in terms of detection and response, we want to be able to catch that ASAP. And SecurityOne is the solution to allow you to detect either one of those cases I just mentioned, to give you an ability to respond as quickly as possible and control that attack before it gets out of control, before it proliferates to other systems and environments.
Thank you, Steve. So the ETI-NET components to this, we spent a lot of time looking at what assets that you have that ETI-NET on the Backbox and the storage components have, right? So as you heard from Steve, the ability to go ahead and to defend your backup systems and the data to stop exfiltration is really, really important. So understanding where is the catalog? Where are those assets? Where are the data locations from that standpoint? And then not only where are they, but then how are they protected? At what level, right? Are they encrypted as soon as they come out of the NonStop estate? Are they traveling across the corporate network? Are they deduplicated, and are they being put into tiering models where there's immutability that will stop any type of change from taking place? Last but not least, also, for those of you that went to the TBC, the ability to do the dollar system snapshot was a real important element that we introduced for the ability to restore a NonStop system that's been compromised from a clean image. Additionally, in the response area, the resource selection on where are you going to pull that data from, which location, at which level of immutability, at which level of security do you need? Because when you do go through one of these situations, it's going to be one of the first questions that the forensics experts are going to be asking is, where are you pulling it back from? Where is it? Where's the differences between these systems? And then last but not least is actually the recovery that Steve talked about. And this is where you have the ability to do that dollar system restoration being able to restore other images into potentially a clean room at an alternative location that's needed, specifically for forensics experts, as well as to be able to restore it onto another NonStop system that you need, or the existing NonStop system to roll it back. So together, we've worked together to go through the identification, the protection, the detection, the response, and the recovery area to fill that cybersecurity framework together for XYPRO and for the NonStop community. So on the Backbox QoreStor, in terms of the protect, the respond, and recover, the key components here are being able to encrypt data as it's coming out of the NonStop before it's going over the corporate network. It's a real important aspect. I think you heard that from Steve earlier on, that these actors, bad actors, are being very sophisticated, and they're in corporate networks. They're looking for these types of systems. So as fast as you can possibly do it and encrypt any kind of backup data is something that's really, really important. The second thing is making sure that once it's encrypted, that as you're following your best practice 3-2-1 rule, that you're in transit, it's not readable, right? To be able to get that second copy, you need to be able to have that second copy so you can meet your SLAs on a restore basis. It needs to be close to the NonStop system. The third thing is to be able to then tier it, whether it be going to a service provider like Scality, which HPE offers today, or other service providers that have S3 buckets and things in that area, or object storage that's going to be in place that you have already within your organization. Utilizing that cloud tiering to get to the extra copy that's in the offsite or in another location from that standpoint. Two other key things that I mentioned. One already was the snapshot and the restoration of the dollar system. The other one is a unique feature with the implementation on Backbox QoreStor is to have a cloud reader. To have a cloud reader that is completely encrypted, there is no way to be able to identify that data in the off location. However, by using this option, having the ability to restore a system that has been copied into another location for clean room forensics or for disaster recovery. Key thing here is all about business value. How do you reduce the cost of the security incidents, right? By reducing the attack surface. Protecting the data as soon as it's coming out of the NonStop is a real important function. The Backbox alone that many of our clients use today is a great through-based system. What we've done is we've added additional software-defined storage capability to that to encrypt, protect, replicate, right, without having that exposure across the corporate network, which means you've got reduced business risk. You've also now given more agility to the operations staff in terms of productivity because they now have control of that data instead of it being residing in a different group. Last but not least, on the savings area is because now what you're doing is you're using software-defined storage in the VTC. The data storage has been reduced and the transfer costs have been reduced because you're not moving as much data through deduplication across the wire. So if we look at some of the capability that's within the system, data locality, the virtual tape controller operational status, where the logical and physical capacity that you have, and where is the replication status. We've successfully deployed this system on numerous financial service accounts, and this quote specifically is a large credit card provider that was successful and that we did the case study at the TBC 23. The key thing here was, from an operations standpoint, giving the operators the ability to identify what assets do I have at what level of resiliency to be able to make decisions quickly on protection as well as restoration. So storage monitoring and tiering is a new functionality that has been brought into the Backbox suite because of the QoreStor capability that's integrated along with that. Steve, now it's a really good dovetail to talk about how, while the functionality that we have with Backbox and QoreStor is in place for protection, how do we ensure that the Backbox QoreStor components detected and is scanned as part of the NonStop estate?
Thanks, Mike. So XYPRO and ETI-NET went down this journey together of how do we improve the resiliency of NonStop systems? How do we detect, how do we cover the entire ecosystem So most of you already know SecurityOne has been out in the market for a while. And essentially, it's your ransomware, virus, and malware protection for NonStop systems. It focuses on being able to detect when events or activity is happening on the system that's outside of your normal, so we can alert you right away. This uses a combination of intelligent file and system integrity monitoring, real-time threat detection. We've had this out in the market for a few years now. I'll talk about it in the next slide. Monitoring, the ability to monitor your NonStop CLIMs in your Windows console as well. But it also provides you all of the tools necessary to generate the data and implement the controls that allow you to get to near real-time incident detection. So SecurityOne provides you with keystroke logging, object level security, user behavior profiling, like I mentioned, file integrity monitoring. But it's got added features as well, such as compliance reporting. PCI DSS 4.0 is going to come into effect here in the next few weeks. SecurityOne is already geared and ready to allow you to evaluate your systems against PCI 4.0. But the thing to highlight here as well is a lot of this is dependent on real-time detection, file system integrity monitoring, meaning when a file changes, we want to know about that right away. When a system configuration changes, we want to know about that in real time. And SecurityOne will allow you to do that faster than any other solution in the market. The key here is, Mike mentioned it as well, is prevention. We want to reduce the cost of security incidents by reducing the attack surface, reducing the probability that something is going to get into your environment. Simplify compliance reporting, taking the manual aspect out of all of the security activity. That's going to improve staff productivity and ultimately reduce business risk. Now, how do we do that? Sorry, Mike, one more thought there before we move on. How do we do that? It's based on a variety of factors, being able to collect configuration data, file activity, user activity, telemetry data, metadata, all of this. We break down all of those silos that traditionally existed when it came to security monitoring, piece them all together to tell one cohesive story and represent those in a visual dashboard like SecurityOne, which you see right here on the right-hand side. So what we did is, together with ETI-NET, enhance the capabilities of the ability to monitor these NonStop appliances. So XYPRO's been monitoring NonStop security for decades now, and that's been a core area of focus for us. But we realized over the last few years that it's a larger ecosystem than just the system or the operating itself. You've got CLIMs, which handle your network I/O and disk I/O. You've got the NonStop console, which is a Windows server. And in a lot of environments, it falls into this gray area of who manages it, who monitors it. Does the NonStop team responsible for it? Is the corporate security team responsible for it? It falls into this no man's land and falls into that statistic of 4 out of 10 systems not being monitored in your environment. So we need to get some eyes and visibility on that. And as we were marching down that path, we realized it's more than just CLIMs and consoles. You've got Backbox servers, you've got HSMs, you've got other appliances that connect to your NonStop environment that could also put your NonStop systems at risk. So we initially worked with HPE to develop a feature within SecurityOne called Appliance Sentry module. And its main purpose is to monitor the activity and the configurations of your NonStop CLIMs and Windows console. So we can monitor for configurations based on CIS benchmarks. We can highlight successful and unsuccessful logins, the firewall status to know if your firewall is on or off, what ports you have open. If a port gets opened up, we're able to tell you about that. This is key. Is antivirus, is being able to have the confidence that you've got antivirus installed on these ancillary environments and their definitions are current and up to date. But in addition to that, we're monitoring Windows updates. We're telling you if you've got any updates missing on your Windows console to tell you that you're at risk for these potential threats. We can detect third-party applications, security configurations. I mentioned the CIS benchmarks, as well as the HPE NonStop Security Hardening Guide. Essentially, what this Appliance Sentry monitor will do is once you point it at a CLIM or a console, and now a Backbox server will scan the entire environment and give you a real-time visual representation of the security health of those devices. So now they're into the SecurityOne fold. You can see them on the dashboard. You can know that if you're in a green state, you can remain at a green state at any time. It doesn't require any manual effort. It's all visually represented with actionable data inside of the dashboard. There's multiple SecurityOne bundles. ASM is a feature of the SecurityOne Suite bundle, Suite Plus bundle. I apologize. There's the HPE product code or SKU if you need it, but not every SecurityOne bundle includes this feature. So if you're interested in this, please reach out and we'll make sure that you've got the appropriate features turned on.
Thank you, Steve. So that kind of summarizes, the value proposition of the Backbox QoreStor and then the scanning of SecurityOne to even ensure that that platform, that appliance is being scanned in the compliance standards of the rest of the NonStop estate. We're excited about that. Now, all of a sudden, we've seen concerns with storage across the enterprise that was not encrypted and other communication, but now being able to have that initially land inside of the BTC and having Zygate SecurityOne scan the BTC gives us another level of security that was not previously available for the NonStop community, which really leads us to what the press release was all about. And Steve, I want to thank you for, the insight and, the common vision that we had back at the TBC and saying, hey, we got to put this together. So I really loved your quote about fortifying foundations. And that's essentially what we're really doing here. And then working with Benoit and the rest of the team at ETI-NET, it became very clear that we were all in to be able to make this happen, and not just make it happen one time, but to make it continuous. So we worked extensively, and I don't want to take any of George's thunder away from his next couple of slides, but we worked a great deal to make sure that we had the organic view integration of the Backbox QoreStor system within SecurityOne. So we'll show you that. And then also our commitment to work with HPE and XYPRO on an ongoing basis for as new releases are coming out continuously. So we've made a commitment to do this on a continual basis to support the platform to make sure that the Backbox BTC with QoreStor is being protected under the Zygate space. So with that, what I'd like to do now is hand it over to George. And George, can you take us through the demo walkthrough?
Sure. Thank you, Mike and Steve, for that very good introduction. So towards the end of last year, sometime in the November, December timeframe, so we engaged with ETI-NET, and where we connected two lab environments together to be able to perform this exercise. So we utilized the HPE's ATC lab environment and XYPRO's own lab environment. At the ATC, we were able to install one of the Backbox appliances, our Appliance Sentry module, and we also installed another agent in one of their NonStop systems to facilitate the data stream back to our XYPRO lab here in Simi Valley. In our XYPRO lab, we had the SecurityOne on-prem application server running, basically, accepting the data stream from the ATC lab, analyzing the data, and then presenting those results. So again, we did this towards last year, and what I'm going to be covering next is, just to give you a quick overview of the SecurityOne dashboard. You've already seen that in the previous slide. Go over a little bit of the Appliance Sentry module, and then take a look at the results and the risk assessment that SecurityOne formulated for us. So from a high level, here is our system dashboard, which basically shows us what SecurityOne is monitoring. It shows us some current statuses of all the modules that are configured, and showing some trends and other telemetry data. So this is a browser-based application that can run in the cloud and also on-prem on Windows or Linux servers. And Steve also mentioned that SecurityOne is available through HPE and XYPRO, and there are several bundles that are available with licensable modules. So each bundle has a different modules configured. But if for this particular discussion, we would be interested in the security in the Suite Plus bundle, which includes the Appliance Sentry module. To get to the Appliance Sentry dashboard, we would click either on the menu item or we can click on the Appliance Sentry pane down below. So here we have our console for appliance security. This is the Appliance Sentry dashboard, so to speak. It provides us with some security information on Cleanse and any other appliances that are configured in your ecosystem. The Sentry module continuously monitors your appliances to identify insecure or misconfigured settings and provides a risk score and remediation actions to ensure your appliances get to a healthy state. So how does it do that? Well, we do have a Windows agent that we installed on one of the appliances that runs once a day by default. But if you want more of a closer real-time monitoring, you can change that interval to run more frequently, so you can have available to you the data more quickly. As you can see in this dashboard, the Backbox appliance that we worked with was the VTC Gen 10, which is configured at the ATC. On the left side of the pane, we have all your NonStop systems on all the appliances that are configured to be monitored by Appliance Sentry. You could drill down to each system and you will get the list of those appliances configured for that node, or you can see all the appliances for all your systems in one display here. So the icons listed across the center of the dashboard, these are the different security configuration items that we monitor. This is determined by performing a series of comprehensive security checks. Again, and runs at whatever interval that you would like this thing to run at. So let's drill down into each one of these icons and review the results, starting with the console. So this is your system configuration that lists the system name, the operating system that's currently running, and also what we have whited out here is that any user accounts that are configured to be able to log into the machine, and also IP addresses that are configured for this box. We also list browsers that are enabled, that are available for use, and the active users. There are a couple of items that we don't show here, but they potentially could show up, and that is whether you have any other antivirus software installed in addition to your typical Windows Defender that is by default shipped with the Windows operating system, and you would also see any other third-party products that are installed on this machine. So, for instance, in the case of the console, NonStop console, you will see all the HP specific software that's installed on the box. In this particular case, the VTC Gen 10, we didn't detect any other third-party products that are installed, so there's nothing to display here. So now let's move on to the logon results. So there's two types of logons that we could monitor here: the interactive and non-interactive ones. So the interactive ones would be the ones where you have typical administrator logging into the machine and just to perform any kind of maintenance on the box. Or you've got your non-interactive logons, which basically are your service accounts that are logging in to maybe to start a service or to run some kind of a scheduled task. And these are probably going to be more prevalent with the Backbox initiating backups and restores on the NonStop systems, which would trigger these service accounts to be performing whatever action that's necessary. So looking at the failed logons clickable item here, we have a Windows event ID, a user account, which we've blocked out for obvious reasons, and then a timestamp when the event occurred. So this is one that you want to really pay close attention to, the interactive logons, because you don't really want to see many of these or logons, whether they fail or succeed into this machine. These machines are pretty much live in isolation, so you want to limit the amount of activity in terms of logons into the machine. Now, looking at the successful ones here, you would also see the service accounts and the interactive logons activity. And then again, so the service accounts are specific to the application that's running, and then you will see whether they succeeded with whatever they were trying to. So again, the key here is to focus on the interactive ones. You want to limit that activity, since if you see too many in logins, interactive ones, that could be an indication of something interesting going on. So you may want to take a look at that and keep an eye. Okay, so let's move on to the firewall settings. Here we see what types of firewalls you've got enabled on the appliance, domain, private, or public, and we just show whether they're enabled or disabled. And then we've got the firewall rules that basically control the inbound and outbound activity. So most of these ports are internal ports configured by Microsoft and HPE, and most of them are required. Your appliance, however, will open up other ports required to perform its normal functions. So let's take a look at the inbound rules. So here, these are the rules that control the traffic that are coming into the appliance and which ports are enabled or disabled. And then you've got the outbound rules that do the opposite, basically controlling what the traffic is allowed to go out of the box. Again, these rules are very important in terms of restricting and controlling what type of traffic flows in and out of the machine. You don't want you want to make sure that you don't have any unauthorized or malicious traffic entering the appliance. With this real-time status, you can see ports that are enabled or disabled, or you'll be able to detect whether anyone has tampered with them. So be on the lookout for ports such as Telnet or FTP, because these could represent a security risk and should be disabled. Not advisable to have these enabled on these appliances. As you can see, without this Sentry module, this would be a monumental task to have to review this manually on a frequent basis, especially if you have several appliances to monitor. In your typical NonStop ecosystem, you can have many consoles, and with the introduction of the Backbox appliances, you can have many of these to be monitoring. So doing this manually is not an easy thing to do. So this is where this tool is very effective in providing you, real-time access to the configuration of these machines. Let's now take a look at the antivirus icon on the dashboard. Again, this shows you what's enabled, or whether it's enabled or disabled. I mentioned by default, Windows Defender is on the machine, and they should be enabled. And if there's any other third-party antivirus software that you'd install, that would also show up in the console icon that we reviewed earlier. So that will show up there as an additional antivirus software. And when was the last time updated? The main thing to keep an eye on here is to make sure that your updates are applied and that your definitions are current. Very important. Moving on to your Windows updates. So it shows you whether the Windows updates are enabled and whether they're manual. One thing to keep in mind here is that for Windows updates, it could be done manually or administered by, a corporate Wintel administrator. So these updates can be pushed, to some kind of, network administrator managing all your devices in your network. So we do show you a list of updates that are missing and the ones that are installed. Let's take a quick look at the missing ones. So missing just shows you just the typical Windows updates, what we detected that's not being installed and necessary. And then we show you the ones that are installed. So you want to make sure in terms of security updates that they're current and that you're not missing any critical ones. Very, very important. And so we show you these lists of what you need to be looking at. So lastly, we can take a look at the risk assessment summary. So after the scans run on each one of these appliances, we summarize the risks below. So we categorize them with the severity. We've got several categories. We have critical, major, and minor. As you can see, these categories are weighted. It's a weighted score determined by XYPRO and HPE, and they're based on industry accepted risks. So as you can see here, we have a couple of critical ones. Stay logons, we think that's something that's critical you need to look at. Very important, missing Windows updates. We need to look at that and make sure that your system is up to date. And then we have other categories that kind of alert you to, hey, these are something that you may want to also take a look at. On the right bottom, so now we have a risk score that we determine, and this we use our own industry expertise, including HPE's hardening guide, which was published, I believe, a few years ago, and the CIS benchmarks. So these benchmarks are pretty much more prevalent when we're monitoring the claims, because the claims are very the compliance aspect of the claims are very heavily weighted using the CIS benchmarks. So as you can see, this dashboard gives you at the fingertips, all the security information that you would need to be able to detect whether there's something nefarious or whether there's something going on with your appliance that you need to address right away. The interface is very easy to use. It provides you as a rich set of data in real time to ensure your appliance is secure. So, I mean, the key to remember here is as long as your firewalls are turned on and no one is using interactive sessions and your antivirus is turned on with current definitions, your appliance will be considered relatively secure. So again, one final thought here is that we talked about the NonStop consoles and the Backbox and CLIMS, but given that our agent is a Windows agent, if you have any other appliance in your ecosystem that you want to monitor, you could take advantage of the Appliance Sentry module to do this. I know I was talking to Mike about ETI-NET, and they have other appliances that they are thinking of incorporating into this entire system. So that is something that you want to keep in mind, because this agent is available to be used in other ways. So anyway, so this brings me to the end, and I will hand this back to Mike and Steve for questions.
Thank you, George. And I hope everybody found that demo useful. I know we ran through it in about 15 minutes or so. And if you want to see a longer demo and see what SecurityOne and more importantly, the Appliance Sentry module can do for you, please reach out to us. But this is a feature that XYPRO has been asked for a very, very long time. Is we've had the ability to monitor the CLIMS and the Windows consoles for several years now. But Backbox, we've always known, would be the next natural progression for this type of security. And customer demand, along with alignment with ETI-NET and HPE, enabled us to move this initiative forward. So this is now available right now in SecurityOne. And actually, I've got a question here in the chat asking something very similar. Is this feature available currently, and is it available in all versions of SecurityOne? So this feature to monitor your Backbox environment is available right now. So if you've got SecurityOne Suite Plus, you can monitor your Backbox environment. It requires SecurityOne Suite Plus. If you've got one of the lower bundles, like the FIM bundle or the compliance bundle, unfortunately, those two bundles don't have the necessary features and components to feed the data to monitor the Backbox server. So you do need SecurityOne Suite Plus. And if you've got one of the other bundles, come talk to us or HPE, and we can get you enabled for SecurityOne Suite Plus. Another question here, George, I'm going to throw this over to you. I think you covered this in your demo, but how is the severity for risks identified and determined? So I know you were showing in one of the screenshots certain risk levels and how we weight certain risks and findings, but how do we determine that?
Yeah, so Steve, so we use our own industry expertise, and then we also leverage HPE's expertise, and we mostly base this on industry accepted risks. So there are some risks that are allowed and risks that are not allowed, and we leverage that information and to come up with the score that we put together for the different categories of the severity levels: critical, major, and minor.
Okay. So that's a combination of what I heard is the HPE's influence. So we've worked in partnership with HPE on this one, and the HPE NonStop Security Hardening Guide has had a lot of input into what we develop here, as well as XYPRO's been in the cybersecurity space for 4 decades now. So we've got quite a large security expertise that went into the product, as well as incorporating CIS benchmarks. If you're not familiar with CIS, it's the Center for Internet Security. And they develop these, what they call benchmarks or frameworks of how certain operating systems or workloads or applications need to be secured. And all of that is factored into what we're doing with the Appliance Sentry module. Mike, I've got a couple of questions here. I'm going to throw over to you if you want to pick those up. They're more geared for ETI-NET responses.
Sure. First one that I saw in here was, how can the Backbox be upgraded to QoreStor? So the HPE provides this as a complete appliance. They load we do a pre-configured configuration on an HPE server that follows industry standards, and load up at the image so that it essentially is a drop-in with the storage. There is a part of and I think you could see that in the quote from the credit card company. It was a very straightforward implementation, easy to do because of all of that pre-configuration. And that is one of the best ways to do the implementation. There are certain customers that have certain other requirements to coexist in custom environments, and those are treated separately on a case-by-case basis to meet their specific data storage requirements. So that was the first question that I had. The second question that I saw in here was in regard to the 3-2-1 rule. And it was in regard to, can this help coexist with an existing 3-2-1 strategy? And the answer to that is yes. Being able to have multiple copies of the data that is available for availability purposes, through the traditional having 2 VTCs with integrated storage, being able to replicate the data back and forth between them for high availability, that meets the 2 in the 3-2-1 model. And then the tiering of the data into other storage devices or services that are in place. So it creates a very simple way to coexist with an existing environment and to help bring that environment up to a 3-2-1 rule implementation. Those were the ones that I had seen in here. Were there any other ones that you saw, Steve?
No, I think that rounds it out.
Good. All right. So let me flip to the next slide here and we'll summarize everything. So as you saw from Steve in the summary in regard to the market, the cybersecurity threats, they continue to increase. It's not an issue of if, it's starting to become when. Financial firms are some of the top targets for it, obviously, because of the sensitivity of the data. Steve, I always enjoy watching some of your LinkedIn posts about how these bad actors are approaching and starting to manipulate end users. And the one with calling them at home for their own reputation, that's a new one. But yeah, I can see it happen. When there's money on the line, these things are going to happen. So regardless whether financial happens to be at a high level, but other, anyone that's using a NonStop type of an environment is going to be subject to this kind of a target. The two of us working together, we're extending the service and the protection of the backup data, right? Trying to stop that, put more controls in place to ensure that exfiltration of the data, pulling data out that could be sold or used against the companies. So higher levels of data protection, as well as ensuring that the Backbox QoreStor-based platform is completely secure as an appliance as a part of the NonStop estate. So real key part of working together with XYPRO in terms of going ahead and ensuring that that's in place. As well as our commitment that you saw from Benoit in terms of making sure that we're going to continuously, as updates are occurring in the VTC with software, that those updates with XYPRO are being tested on an ongoing basis to help the NonStop community as a whole, which really underlines the last statement there, that we're going to fortify the NonStop Data Security Foundation. So Steve, I want to thank you for the opportunity and sharing the same vision to work together. I think that this is a real hand in glove relationship, and working together, making sure that we're fully transparent and delivering a higher level of value security solution for the NonStop industry. Any statements that you want to make prior to close this out?
Yeah, I know it's not easy to dedicate an hour of your day to sitting through a webinar, but I hope you found this beneficial. And if there's interest in seeing a deeper demo on what we talked about today, please feel free to reach out to us, to ETI-NET, or to HPE. And we'd be more than happy to walk you through all of these features and what they can do for you in your environment. And one thing to keep in mind, we've been classically trained that we need to secure our production environment, our production data, our workloads that our customers interact with. But because we've put so much emphasis on the front end of our ecosystem, the backup servers, the DR servers, the development servers have fallen behind, and we treat those our mindset goes to a different security level when we talk about non-production systems, workloads, and data. Unfortunately, these bad actors know that, and they're using that to their advantage. So the true digital resiliency means making sure that you've got all of your environment properly secured, protected, because if they're going to get in, the likely cause is going to be it's because one of those lower environments weren't properly secured. So I want to make sure that all of it is considered. And this combination of HPE, XYPRO, and ETI-NET provides you all of the tools, the strategy, and the solutions to be able to deploy an all-encompassing digital resilient strategy. So appreciate everybody's time. Like I said, if you need more information, feel free to reach out to us. This webinar will also be delivered again this afternoon, US time, as well as will be posted up on YouTube here in the next couple of days. So you can always rewatch it.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. And thank you for everyone to attend this joint webinar with ETI-NET and XYPRO. Thank you.